They say only big powers can stand up to Russia. But what if I told you one of Moscow's loudest and most fearless critics is a country so small you could drive across it in just a few hours? Estonia, a tiny Baltic nation with fewer people than many global cities, sits right on Russia's doorstep. And yet, instead of hiding behind diplomacy, Estonia openly challenges the Kremlin, strengthens its defenses, and even shapes NATO's strategies. How? By preparing for war before it came, building one of the most advanced cyber defenses in the world, and turning every citizen into a potential soldier. Today, we'll uncover how Estonia transformed from a Soviet-occupied state to one of Russia's toughest opponents, the secret strategies that make it far more prepared for a Russian attack than you might think, and the surprising reason why Estonia's playbook could change how the world deals with superpowers forever. But here's the real twist. Estonia's bold stance isn't just about self-defense. If their strategy works, it might just be the blueprint to stop Russia, and no one's talking about it. When you think about countries capable of standing up to Russia, you probably imagine military giants like the United States, China, or maybe even the UK. But Estonia, on a map, it's a mere sliver of land, smaller than many Russian provinces. With a population of just 1.3 million, Estonia has fewer people than some Moscow suburbs. And yet, it has become one of the loudest, most determined voices warning the world about Russian aggression. To understand why, we need to go back in time. Estonia's modern identity was shaped by decades of Soviet occupation, starting during World War II. For nearly half a century, Estonians lived under Moscow's control, their culture suppressed, their economy tightly managed, and their independence stolen. It wasn't until 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, that Estonia finally broke free. But freedom came with a memory and a warning. Estonians knew that Russia's power didn't disappear with the fall of the USSR. And so, unlike many nations that assumed the Cold War was over for good, Estonia prepared for the possibility that history could repeat itself. Even as it rebuilt its economy and embraced technology, Estonia never forgot the shadow of its giant neighbor. This is a nation that doesn't believe in hoping for the best, it believes in preparing for the worst. That's why it has some of the highest defense spending in NATO relative to its size, and why it treats every citizen as part of its defense system. From its capital, Tallinn, to its smallest villages, Estonia carries an unshakable message. We may be small, but we are ready. And that readiness would soon put this tiny nation on the front line of a global power struggle. But standing tall is one thing, surviving a giant's push is another. Estonia knew that courage alone wouldn't stop Russia. So while the rest of Europe enjoyed years of peace, this tiny nation quietly began preparing for a storm it believed was inevitable. While much of Europe spent the early 2000s enjoying economic growth and a sense of peace, Estonia was quietly digging in for the storm it believed would eventually come. Unlike some countries that only think about defense after a crisis, Estonia decided to act long before the first shots were fired in Ukraine. One of its first moves, mandatory military service. Every young man is required to serve in the armed forces, with women encouraged to join voluntarily. But this isn't just about training a few thousand soldiers. It's about making sure almost every family in Estonia has someone who knows how to defend the country. And even after their service ends, citizens remain part of the Kaitseliat, or Defense League, a volunteer force that can be mobilized at a moment's notice. Then came defense spending. While many NATO members struggled to hit the alliance's 2% GDP target, Estonia blew past it, often spending close to 3%, not because it's rich, but because it knows survival has no price tag. This money goes into modern weapons, battle training, and cooperation with the NATO allies stationed in the country. And then there's the cyber front. In 2007, Estonia became the victim of one of the first large-scale state-sponsored cyber attacks, widely believed to be from Russia. that shut down banks, media, and government services. Instead of seeing it as a humiliation, Estonia treated it as a wake-up call. It built a world-class cyber defense system, integrating digital resilience into national security. By the time Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014 and again in 2022, Estonia wasn't scrambling to react. It was already armed, trained, and prepared, sending weapons, aid, and warning to the rest of the world. This is what we have been telling you about. These preparations didn't happen in isolation. Estonia understood that to truly deter Russia, it needed more than just its own soldiers. It needed the backing of the world's most powerful military allies. And that's how this small Baltic state became one of NATO's most important front lines. Estonia may be small, but its location makes it a giant in strategic importance. Sitting on NATO's eastern border, it shares a 300-kilometer frontier with Russia, and that line isn't just a national border, it's the very edge of the Western alliance. If Russia ever decided to test NATO's resolve, Estonia would be one of the first places to feel the impact. That's why NATO has turned Estonia into part of its enhanced forward presence, a deployment of multinational battle groups meant to deter any aggression. In Estonia's case, the lead nation is the United Kingdom, supported by troops and equipment from countries like France and Denmark. Tanks, armored vehicles, and air defense systems are permanently stationed here, not for offense, but as a clear warning. If you attack Estonia, you are attacking all of NATO. But Estonia isn't just a passive host for foreign soldiers. It actively participates in large-scale joint exercises with its allies, practicing everything from urban warfare to cyber defense simulations. These drills aren't for show. They are rehearsals for a scenario everyone hopes never happens. What makes Estonia unique is its political stance inside NATO. While some countries prefer cautious diplomacy with Moscow, Estonia pushes for stronger sanctions, bigger defense budgets, and a tougher military presence on the alliance's eastern flank. Its leaders don't mince words, they openly call Russia the biggest threat to European security. In a way, Estonia acts like NATO's early warning system, constantly reminding its allies that peace is fragile and deterrence only works if you are willing to back it up. On the map, it might look like a tiny border state. In reality, it's a fortress and a tripwire standing between Russia and the rest of Europe. But in today's wars, the battlefield doesn't end at the border. Estonia knows the fight can begin in places you can't see, inside servers, networks, and digital systems. And on that invisible front, this small country is a global leader. If you think defending a country is all about tanks, fighter jets, and soldiers, Estonia would like to introduce you to its other battlefield, one without borders, smoke, or explosions: the digital front. After the devastating 2007 cyber attack that knocked out banks, news outlets, and even government websites, Estonia realized that in the 21st century, war could start with a keyboard instead of a gun. Instead of patching up the damage and moving on, the country rebuilt its entire digital infrastructure with one goal: resilience. Today, Estonia is considered the most advanced digital society in the world. Every citizen has a secure digital ID, allowing them to vote, pay taxes, sign contracts, and access healthcare online, all protected by some of the most robust encryption systems anywhere. In fact, many services can still function even if Estonia's physical territory were occupied, thanks to something called data embassies, secure servers hosted in other countries. And Estonia didn't stop there. In 2008, it became the home of NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence, a hub where experts from across the alliance train to counter cyber threats. This isn't just about defense, it's about offense, learning how to identify, track, and neutralize hostile cyber operations before they cause damage. For Estonia, the internet is both a weapon and a shield. It knows that controlling information, protecting infrastructure, and keeping citizens connected during a crisis can be as decisive as winning a battle in the field. While Russia invests in propaganda and cyber sabotage, Estonia invests in building a digital fortress, one that could serve as a blueprint for any nation facing modern hybrid warfare. Because in today's world, you can lose a war without a single shot being fired. So, with strong alliances, a trained population, and one of the world's toughest cyber shields, the question remains: can Estonia's strategy actually stop Russia? And if it can, could this approach change how the entire world defends itself? Estonia's strategy is bold, but here's the big question: can it actually stop Russia? On paper, the odds look impossible. Russia has a military budget hundreds of times larger, nuclear weapons, and a massive population. Estonia, just 1.3 million people, a few brigades of troops, and no nuclear arsenal. But Estonia's strength isn't in matching Russia tank for tank. It's in creating a defense so costly and complicated that any invasion becomes a nightmare. The first layer is deterrence. By embedding NATO troops on its soil, Estonia ensures that any attack would immediately trigger a response from multiple nuclear-armed nations. It's not just Estonia Russia would be fighting, it would be the entire alliance. The second layer is resilience. Every citizen trained in defense, every system backed up digitally, every road, bridge, and port integrated into military planning. If Russia did cross the border, Estonia wouldn't collapse in days. It would fight, resist, and make the occupation unbearable. The third layer is the cyber shield. In modern warfare, disrupting communications, banking, and logistics can cripple an enemy faster than bombs. Estonia's cyber defenses make it extremely difficult for an aggressor to paralyze the country without facing counterattacks. Of course, there are limits. Estonia's military alone couldn't sustain a long war against Russia. Its survival depends on NATO's unity, and that's where the uncertainty lies. Would all members respond instantly if Moscow tested the alliance? Estonia's leaders believe the answer must always be yes, which is why they push so hard for constant readiness. But here's where Estonia's influence goes beyond its borders. Its approach is being studied by other small nations facing powerful neighbors. Lithuania, Latvia, Finland, even countries outside Europe are looking at Estonia's model. Prepare before the crisis, integrate the population into defense, invest heavily in cybersecurity, anchor your safety in strong alliances. Estonia's message to the world is simple. You don't need to be the big to be strong. You just need to make yourself impossible to conquer without paying a terrible price. And maybe, just maybe, if more nations adopt this mindset, Russia or any other aggressor will think twice before making their move. Because sometimes the smallest player can teach the biggest lesson in how to survive. Thanks for watching and consider subscribing.